That glorious moment when you submit a pull request. You did some dancing with the maintainers. They finally merged it. And then all there's left to wonder is the question. When the is this going to be released? This is my plea for release automation open source projects. If a PR gets merged, contributors should not have to sit around wondering, oh boy, when will this ever get shipped? No, maintainers need to approve, and after that, releases should just be boring, predictable, and automatic. Automated releases aren't easy, but I found a workflow that strikes the right balance, and that's what I'm going to show you. There's no silver bullet, so every project is slightly different, but instead of a magic library that solves everything, I'm just going to show you some steps that I would take when automating a release in an open source project. To start off, when you release some new version of some software, people will want to know, well, okay, what changed? What's new? What's breaking? What's the risk of updating? Those kind of questions. And for that, we look at a changelog. More specifically, I am a fan of keep a changelog. It is a very lightweight format that with some markdown, you can just describe what happened in a release. You can see there are some principles, there are some type of changes, there are different sections for that. It's a minimal effort kind of thing in a very human readable way. I'm a fan of doing this by hand because I don't believe that every change and every git commit needs to be part of your changelog. Automating this doesn't lead to good results. At the end of the day, you're writing this for your end users who are human, so having a human readable format is just a win in my book. This is an example of a handwritten changelog file in the Phantomus project. When should you add these entries to your changelog? Well, I believe that happens at the PR stage. Let's look at this example I had a while ago. Basically, we're doing a little bit back and forth between the maintainers and the contributor. Like, okay, on a technical level, what do we need to discuss? And at a certain point, I approved this. I said, okay, this looks fine. If you want a new release, just update the changelog file and all the rest will be automated. And then there was an update to the changelog. So if you just take a look at that, the contributor is actually proposing a new version on a specific release date. I approve, I sign off, I merge this domain, human responsibility, that's the gate, and then the release just happens. CI shall deliver. So when this eventually ran through all the CI pipelines, it created a new GitHub release. Keep a changelog also has this notion of an unreleased section. So in essence, if you don't want to have an automated release after that, you can just add it to the unreleased section and we'll just pick it up with the next release. I do consider adding an entry to the changelog file just as part of my definition of done. There's nothing inherently difficult. The changelog is full of examples that contributors can take a look at. If they basically can come up with something that fits within the existing structure, then that's fine. And I don't think the burden is the maintainers only to bear. We're in this together. We just communicate. Do we need a changelog? Do we not? If I expect users to put in a changelog entry, I communicate this in my contributing guidelines, just like I communicate other expectations I might have that, oh, you need to ensure that the code is formatted, that the tests are passing, that the linter is fine, those kind of things. Well, you just include changelog into that. If you are unsure about a changelog entry, just add something. As a maintainer, it is very easy to just like, oh, actually this thing fixed. It's not fixed, it's more changed, etc. But that's a very easy way to just step in and tweak this however the maintainer wants. But there's no excuse for, oh, the maintainers have to do it. No, this is no rocket science, and I think everybody can just do this. Okay, well, we bumped our version in the changelog, and potentially you might need to sync that with some other files as well. Again, try and automate this. In another project where we have a similar setup, I actually have this check version file where we're going to parse our changelog. Keep a changelog is really used quite often, so in whatever language you're working with, there's probably going to be a parser somewhere. So in this case, we're just parsing the changelog and we're going to compare it to what our package JSON version is. So I'm in a npm style project and these things need to match. What I'm going to do is do a comparison check during the pull request CI run. And if those versions don't match, I'm just gonna fail the build, as you can see here. One other way you could deal with this is having a git hook where there's a piece of script that's gonna run when you do a commit message and automatically changes this file, something like that. I didn't go for this project, but you know, that's one other option you have there. And then afterwards, what you typically have is you're gonna run your CI job on pull request, and you're gonna have something that runs whenever there's no code, a push on the main branch. So in this case, I'm gonna detect if a new release is necessary. I know that my package JSON, well, in case of this project with Node, is going to be the same version as my changelog. I'm importing that script again, it's a bit of a sanity check. What I can do is compare all the GitHub releases. The GitHub CLI tool is really a very convenient way to sort of ask for all your releases. I can even, you know, grab some JSON out of this, doing a bunch shell over here, shell script. Wonderful stuff. I can basically check, oh, if there just aren't any releases, then we need a new release. Or otherwise, I'm getting the latest release, just doing a sort via some Semver package, which I'm importing over here. And in essence, if I do need a new release, I'm going to trigger a different workflow. Now you could just do the release or whatever that process is in line in here. That's all up to you, but I found it to be most clean in the last iteration of this process to just have a separate release job. When we look at our release, we can see that we do the workflow dispatch. This thing allows you to trigger it with GitHub workflow run. So this is some very GitHub specific magic, but if you have any other system, you get the idea. You do the check on the main branch. You eventually come into the release. At this point, your changelog, your package JSON, every file that needs to be updated is already in a good shape. And then over here, we do whatever we need to do. In this case, I'm gonna build plugins. I'm gonna sign the plugin. I'm gonna package both versions of a signed and unsigned. And then I'm gonna run another script to do the publish. In case of a publish, I made some zip files and I wanna make a GitHub release. That's again, very simple with the GitHub CLI client. I'm just doing this release. I'm gonna grab the tag from my package JSON or from my changelog, wherever I want to fetch it basically. Artifacts is just going to be like the glob files that I need, and we can also add a notes file. The notes file is basically just going to be a temporary file, but the notes themselves are going to be my changelog. So again, I'm using the npm helper package to just read the last version of the changelog. I get that exact text. And if I then were to go to that release, after GitHub released created the thing, it's going to look like this. It has the same text over here. It has my artifacts, and that was what I'm after. The nice thing about a GitHub release is that it also creates a tag. I don't have to create my tags manually to like start my process. It just happens as a side effect of having my release, which is very nice. And when it comes to these releases, you can do fancy stuff if you like. For example, here we're going to use the GitHub CLI. It's in a different language, but you get the idea. We're going to grab a list of all the PRs, and then we're going to grab all the offers. We're going to filter out the bots. And we're gonna do this special thanks message over here, and that then looks a little bit like this. But the nice part is all this happened the moment I signed off my PR, then it got picked up. Then I'm gonna compare, do I need to do a new release or not? And afterwards, just do the thing really. And in this case, because the GitHub release creates the tag, I'm not wasting any tags, because I could have approached this differently and say, oh, the moment I make a tag, I'm gonna have a CI job listen to the tag creation and only work on that. But if that job then fails for the publish for whatever reason, then yeah, I may have to just bump the version because of skill issues in my CI/CD pipeline. So that's kind of sad. And another thing that also didn't happen with this setup is that you're not committing any files during your CI/CD pipeline. I find this a bad practice. So that's my release philosophy. Humans sign off on the changelog. After that, the Ethereum writes and CI shall deliver. Let me know in the comments what you think about this approach. Until we meet again.